Well, so much has happened this week. I've actually had to cut back on a lot of things I wanted to talk about at the start of the week. So I said to a few issues, you need to come off, right? No. I'm substituting you for a bigger issue. But would these issues leave? Would they exit the pitch? No. So I've suspended some of these issues, and my managerial authority has been reinstated. Okay, let's crack on. Okay, so more on the John Wayne scandal surrounding his 1971 interview with Playboy magazine, where he allegedly said some things that were construed as homophobic and racist. It turns out that some critics are demanding, not asking, demanding, that John Wayne Airport in Orange County, California, be renamed because of that interview. Called it, didn't I? So I was expecting something more. I was expecting a kind of heavy pressure put on Netflix or Amazon to have his back catalogue removed from their channels. But no, the activists are starting small. They're going after an airport. See how much traction it gets. So when these news stories have said critics, but it's the outrage mob. It's a small group of people who have just got the radar looking for anything that they can be offended and outraged about. And we'll see how it goes. So far, it's not getting a lot of public traction, this demand to have the airport renamed. I didn't expect it to be. I think John Wayne is too big to take down. I think everybody understands that the icon that is John Wayne and perhaps his personal views are very different, and they don't care. I think general public don't care. They care more about the icon John Wayne than the real man. And so we'll see how this one pans out in the weeks and months to come. But I don't think it will get that far. But I'm surprised that activists are starting that small as an anti-John Wayne movement. So this week has been largely about optics. Take David Lammy, for example, and his recent spats with Comic Relief. You see, that all stemmed from an optic that displeased him, shall we say. So there was a photograph put out by the charity Comic Relief showing the young investigative journalist Stacey Dooley, not related to the 70s music group The Dooleys, I should add. On the move, we're on the move again. Stacey Dooley was in Africa for Comic Relief, and she had a series of publicity photos taken, of which this image that went out is the one that was selected by the photographer, by the people at Comic Relief, in order to display what's going on, what the charity is all about. And this is what Lammy objects to. The basis of his objection is that Stacey Dooley, a young white woman from the United Kingdom, is holding a African child, black African child, who's got his finger in his mouth. Now, Lammy really objected to that last point. He really objected to the fact that the child had a finger in his mouth. He would have swatted that finger away and said no, had it been his child, apparently. But he objects to the fact that there's Stacey Dooley and she's smiling. She's doing that thing that you see in a lot of these charity fundraising photographs. You have the celeb in a part of the developing world that is has a lot of problems, and she's there. She's smiling. She's with the child. Isn't she lovely and kind and wonderful? Now, Lammy focuses on Dooley's race. That's the issue for him, that it's white paternalism, it's white patronising black Africans. And he's missed the whole point. There are lots of problems with Comic Relief. I mean, I, running Rhubba.com, have boycotted Comic Relief for years. It is the least funny day of the year. If I want to give money to charities, to the developing world, I do it at various points of the year. I don't need an enforced humour day to promote provoke my sympathies and my philanthropy. You do it at any other time. I just hate all that wackiness in the workplace thing, and I hate it that on the show itself it's taking all these funny people and just making them unfunny for one evening. And the whole red nose thing, yeah, sort of clashes with my shirts. As I said, Lammy's objection is that it's white paternalism, even though Comic Relief was co-founded by Lenny Henry, a prominent British black comedian. So a point has been made is that there's a lot wrong with Comic Relief, and I would agree that why should we have celebrities out in this world telling us that we should give up our money. I would much rather see people with a little bit of gravitas, a little bit of knowledge and experience, not just parachuted in for a photo call to say give us your money and then sort of airlifted out, but people who are very active at the ground. I know somebody who is does a lot of aid work in Burundi. Subscribe to his newsletter. I would encourage you to find people that you think are really good, organisations that you think are really good, doing great work around the world, and keep listening. Subscribe to newsletters, find out what they're doing, and you can make a better informed choice about where to make your donations. The point's been very well made that one of the problems with Comic Relief is that all this money is raised, how much of it actually gets through to people who need it most once you start factoring in all the middlemen and the corrupt governments and the militaries of various nations. So that's really the beef, that the idea that this has somehow got to be driven along racial lines is more race baiting by Lammy. Now, a lot of his supporters have been conjuring up that phrase, the white man's burden again. And I think this is a misunderstood phrase because it's not really about racism. See, the white man's burden was coined in the late 19th century, and it refers to a kind an age-old idea of philanthropy that the haves should somehow use their excess of wealth or knowledge or skills to help those who are deprived. In the context of the late 19th century, yes, white man's burden, because the United Kingdom was very affluent at that time, were world leaders in knowledge, science, technology, and they would argue government as well. Why not share that knowledge and put some wealth into helping those areas less well deprived? Now, as I said, this is not an idea that was conjured up in the colonial era. This is an idea that goes back thousands of years. If we have, what do you think the story of the Good Samaritan is all about? The idea of charity, the idea of the wealthy helping the poor, has been around for millennia. And why have people forgotten about it? Why are they linking it to race? It's just a current incarnation. But sadly, Lammy's got traction on this one because people have talked about it. Now, not for Comic Relief 2019, but for Comic Relief 2020, they'll sit there and say, oh no, we can't send someone like Stacey Dooley. We can't send a nice, personable white person to Africa to highlight problems there and to encourage people to donate money. We can't do that. The optics are all wrong because David Lammy and his pals will have a go at us again. So you might end up damaging philanthropy and charity work. People will get turned off and say, I'm not having any of this. And I think people will suffer because, our old friend, optics. So we were talking about optics earlier. And one of my favourite stories of this week was about the Independent Group. And they had their first meeting at a branch of Nandos. And there was that photograph, and they were all sitting there. There's Heidi Allen opposite Chuka and Manu smiling. Everybody looks great. Those nondescript men, they're at the far end of the table because they don't have any recognition for official purposes. So all the well-known people are at the other end of the table, and Anna Soubry is looking utterly, utterly miserable. I have never seen that woman smile. But anyway, maybe the starter disagreed with her. But I just couldn't think of a better place for them to have met than at a branch of Nandos, because this is, it's such a corporate entity. It's just a brand. It's this massive chain. A chain restaurant seems perfect for a group of people that just can only think in terms of globalism and massive companies, and screw the little guy, and who are independent entrepreneurs anyway. It would have been much better for them had they booked a one-off restaurant somewhere, just to show that they just weren't so corporate. And they, this is poor optics, because it just reeks of kind of urban middle class. I'm reminded of that comic strip in Private Eye. It's grim up North London, and that's what it seems like to me. But it wasn't just the meeting at Nandos, or Heidi Allen's tweet the next day where she takes a photograph outside of that branch of Nandos and goes, "Happy memories, sigh." Was Chucker playing footsie with you under the table, Heidi? Heidi Allen baffles me. There's just absolutely nothing about her that says Conservative, and yet she got through. She got through the vetting process. That's another thing I'm going to have to mention at the AGM. Can we make sure that anybody who wants to be a prospective parliamentary candidate for the Conservative Party at least have one Conservative idea about them? The amusing things I find about the independent group is that they also assigned each other jobs so that they're spokespeople for various departments. And noticing that Anna Soubry got the job of being spokesperson for Brexit and justice. Kind of funny, considering that she considers all Leave voters to be morons and scum, and that she wants people who protested her stomped on hard. You just handed a live hand grenade to Anna Soubry, Chucker. Thank you. But one of the other great things about it is how they chose who would do what. Now, apparently, what they did was they played the party game where they put a post-it note with a government department on their foreheads, and they had to guess which one they were. So I could just picture the scene. Let me see now. Does it involve excessive regulation? Yeah, does it? Does it? Now, the three Conservative defections to the independent group, as well as Michael Gove's recent comments about private schools and a number of other issues that have been going on in the Conservative Party, you would wonder, has the Conservative Party got an ideological crisis on its hands? And yes, it certainly does. How best to solve this, move forward, how best to represent the mainstream right in British politics. Now, Peter Hitchens says that he wants the Conservative Party to be destroyed. Okay, Peter, what replaces it on the mainstream right? This is a serious question, because I don't think UKIP are the solution, because they are still very much based around a single issue of leaving the EU. It can be widened slightly to encompass a general negative stance towards globalism and mass immigration, but at its heart, it is a single issue, leave the EU party, and it also has support not just from disaffected Conservatives, but from disaffected Labour voters, particularly the working class socialist left. As typified in the 60s and 70s. This is not the Fabian left of the urban, educated, middle-class socialists. This is the union, working man's sort of tight-knit community left that UKIP tapped into. And if you're going to change UKIP into a mainstream right-wing party, you've got that section of voters who will not easily flip to a kind of classical liberal political model, one that supports entrepreneurs, one that perhaps defends healthy tradition, healthy levels of patriotism, and sort of our history as well. They may not flip over to that. So by all means, if you are going to talk about ending the Conservative Party, destroying it, let's talk about what takes its place on the mainstream right. Because if you don't, and the Conservative Party is somehow destroyed, then what you are left with is a political void where the progressive left and the Marxist left have complete free rein. This is something I will credit the independent group for doing, is that they know where to position themselves on the political map. They are the new Blairites. Some of them are old Blairites, but they are Blairites nonetheless. They have muscled in on the Liberal Democrats' turf, and they're trying to appeal to the Cappuccino Ciabatta Brigade particularly in London, but also in other affluent areas of cities right across the United Kingdom. So, and they're trying to scoop up that old Blairite crowd, if they still exist amongst the electorate. That also begs the question: what the hell is going on with the Liberal Democrats? Why didn't they make more capital out of this? I don't know. I don't have contacts in the Liberal Democrats to know what's going on with them. I would say that they are in a deep malaise. There is something going on there that they are powerless or too weak to take advantage of. They're just absolutely rudderless. I don't even know why they exist. I know why they should exist, but I don't know why they exist in their current guise. So, yes, going back to the Conservative Party, some serious questions have to be asked. I think the best place to ask them is for people like myself and other mainstream people on the right to put those questions to the Conservative Party, to make our opinions known, hopefully to steer the Conservative Party away from Blairism, away from the progressive centre-left, and back into being a more genuine mainstream right-wing party. And if the Conservative Party have to go, let's think about what replaces it. And finally, on the Weekly Biscuit, Guy Verhofstadt, the git that keeps on giving. He's had a couple of corking tweets this week. One where he was having a moan about nasty posters of him being put up in Hungary. Unflattering posters of Guy Verhofstadt being posted by enemies of Europe in Hungary. Well, unflattering posters of Guy Verhofstadt, yeah. But that wasn't the best. The best one was a tweet he put out where he doesn't just outline his vision to have all European nations come together as one. Right, one superstate, one European superstate. But now he wants to extend the hand of the superstate to Africa, to have a Eurafrican superstate, the United States of Afro-Europe. Seriously, this is what he's tweeted, this vision. And it was so bonkers that even people who put FBPE after their names on Twitter were saying, Guy, you're just giving Leave more ammunition. Stop it. Just stop talking. So even FBPE in the UK just think he's gone too far. And that's brilliant. The FBP are just angry at Guy Verhofstadt's mad vision of this kind of European African mega nation. And on that note, that really does take the biscuit.